Hey guys, how's it going? You know, it's the beginning of a new year. I'll be completely bald. Yellow Ackie, Reptile. Hey guys, how's it going? So last week I ordered finally a Solarmeter. I got 6.5R, and I'm gonna go around today to each of my enclosures and take some UVB readings. I actually already did some readings and changed a few things, and I'm really happy I got this. I've been really thinking how essential this tool is, and just me changing a few things, seeing how the readings were, they really opened up my eyes to how not always, I'm so bad at words lately, how the recommended distances from Arcadia, Reptile, they're not always reliable. I always follow their guidelines, and I always preach it to you guys. The Arcadia 12%, that's 12 to 15 inches from your reptile's back. Arcadia 14%, that's 15 or more inches. And yes, those are good rough guidelines, but I set my enclosures up that way, and they were still in the wrong Ferguson zones, which is how you kind of go about guidelining what their UVB should be. So we'll talk about that more as we go through each reptile, but let's get to the actual video. So let's start off by looking at the Ferguson zones. Before anything, I do want to mention that either of the Reptile solar meters that you can get, the 6.5R or 6.2, they will come with what details the Ferguson zone. So you can kind of reference that as you take a reading. So here you see Ferguson zone 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have the numbers 1 through 7. Now, what specifically do they mean? Well, here are the different zones, and I believe this is the latest one. This is from 2016 in the journal Zoo and Aquarium Research. I believe this is the latest. So zone 1 is the lowest UV index ones. These are the ones that are in the canopy, in the undergrowth, I think that's what it's called. Basically, they're not on the top layer in rainforests and forests and stuff like that, so they don't get a lot of direct UVB. Here you have crested geckos, leopard gecko, tokay geckos, and a whole bunch more, and this is probably where my Boyd's forest dragon would fall under. Now, what's cool about the latest version is that they have intermediate zones between two zones. So here you have the intermediate between zone 1 and 2. Here you have the intermediate between 2 and 3. So that kind of breaks it down a little bit more, and this is particularly interesting in the case of Ackie Monitors. Interestingly, there's a lot of debate on where Ackie Monitors fall, in which zone here. A lot of reputable exotic vets with reptile research say zone 3, as well as a lot of guides, so I tend to lean towards zone 3 more so. But I do see some reputable keepers, some reputable guides also recommending zone 4. Now, I do believe zone 4 is a little high, especially if you look at the case of bearded dragons. Bearded dragons bask for longer times than Ackie Monitors. Ackie Monitors are somewhat quick baskers, so I do think the UVI or the UV index will be a little bit higher for bearded dragons, and in this study they're recommending between zone 3 and 4. So I could see a potential case, though, for Ackie Monitors falling into this intermediate zone here, because, you know, bearded dragon falls in there, and they're somewhat in the same, they are in the same environment, it's just they bask a little bit differently. But zone 3, I think, is a safe bet here for Ackie Monitors. So I do think you can go between 3 and 4 and be fine, though. And the important thing to note here is the sunbeam method. Obviously, the basking zone, that could be 7.4, the high end. So if you have a really high UV basking zone, that's okay, as long as it's in between this 2.9 and 7.4 all around. So that's important to note there, that the basking zone can be a little bit higher than 3 to 4. Otherwise, I mentioned bearded dragon being in zone 3 to 4. We'll look at that today. And black and white Tegu, zone 3. We'll check that out also. So here we are in my red Hendrick Ackie Monitor female's enclosure. Haven't given her a name yet. And we're going to go ahead and test out her UVB. You can see I turned off the 6% up front because of my first test. But we're going to go ahead and show you how to do this. So the first thing I like to do is go ahead and put it directly under the bulb. And it's going to be really high, and that's because it's working. So good stuff. You have a working bulb there. Then I like to slowly start going down and going to the max basking spot. So that should be right over here. And you can see you want to give a little couple inches further height. So I'm a little higher than it. But right here you can see 6.4, 6.3, maybe a little bit lower. That falls within what the maximum basking zone for the sunbeam method says. So that is fine. That is good. We can check right up here, Olivia. If you want to move back a little bit, over here, since it's a little bit diagonally distant, farther away from the bulb, it's down to the 3s. Then I guess we can just try right here, and we're in the 5s here. So this is all good. The basking spot, the highest is in the low 6s, and that falls within the recommendations for what zone 3 and the intermediate zone between 3 and 4 recommends. We're in LG's enclosure now, another Ackie monitor, and we're just testing out this 14%. For some reason, this is a lot higher than the other 14% we just did. Not sure why, got them at the same time, but you can see the 6% is off here in the enclosure as well from my first test. Now let's bring it down to the highest area. We can see right here, this is actually probably a little bit lower than what I want for the max basking spot. This is about 4.5, 4.4. Let me see over here maybe. No, that's in the 3s. The last one I could kind of check is up here. No, so I actually probably want to go a little bit higher over here to give a higher basking spot for UV. Maybe somewhat closer to the actual heat basking spot over there. So that's LG's reading right now. Probably have to bump this up a little bit more. Probably turn on to 6% actually. So this is the last Ackie one we're going to do. I have Asus and Dell in here, my pair of yellows. This one has been going for over a year at this point. I did order new ones to replace this one, but I just want to show how good it's still producing after a year. But let's go ahead, let's go down to the basking spot, and let's see what we have here. So we have in the 4s. So again, this could probably be a little bit higher at the closest point. And I did turn off the 6% here as well. So maybe I'll turn those back on. They seemed a little bit high. I'm actually forgetting right now what the number was with the 6%. But I'm going to turn that back on and test it again, since the basking spot can be more concentrated. While we're waiting for the 6% to warm up a little bit, you got to give it a minute or so before it's at max concentration. I do want to just show the distance here, just to relate it to distance, since that is a factor a lot recommend. You can see 15 is right here, and that is probably roughly where their back would be if they were on here. It would actually probably be almost, it would probably be about 14.5 inches. So distance can work. I mean, for 14%, they recommend 15 inches plus. It really kind of just depends on how it's built, I feel like. It's just, there's so many factors that go into it. I feel like distance is just not reliable. Every enclosure is about 15 inches or so I've planned for Ackies from the light bulb, and each one of them has a different number with different bulbs, and they each have different output even from getting them at the same point in time. So it's just hard to rely on distance. So the 6% is warmed up, so let's go ahead and see what it is with the 6%. We can see it's working because we're right under it and it's picking up something, and obviously it's going to be much less because it's 6% and this is the 14%, so it's going to be a lot higher there. So let's check what the basking spot is with both of them on. You can see the basking spot is actually not as high as I thought it was going to be. It's 5.5, it's about a whole point higher than what it was without it on, which, you know, that still falls within that 7.4 maximum for zone 3 and the intermediate zone between the two. So I think I'll keep the 6% on. I see no reason not to. I don't think this is too high for the max basking point. I think this is good, so I think I might even have to turn these back on in my other Ackie enclosures. Now, I just want to give a word of warning, and I'm very concerned about this. Obviously, Max is fine and in good health and exhibiting no problems, but I think I really misunderstood how the distance works from UVB. It's just below it, and I guess I kind of misunderstood how these reflective kind of fixtures work too. I thought this is supposed to widen sort of the zone that the UVB comes from. So now, if you go straight down, it's obviously working. We get all the way down to the bottom here is 1.8. That's very, very low for a bearded dragon. Now, in my design of this enclosure, I thought I can put this here, and this is 15 inches from it. So should be able to pick up high levels of UV. Take it here. It doesn't. Diagonally does not count for distance. And maybe that's on the product itself. Maybe I just made a mistake in interpreting it and reading it. But I really thought, especially with the reflective fixture, that it should be able to take these diagonals in wider areas and keep the UV levels up. So I really got to keep an eye on this. Max is luckily moving into a new enclosure soon, so I think that will solve the issue. But very concerning to find out. Russian tortoises are Ferguson Zone 3. So let's go ahead. I have a 4-foot, 6% arcadia in here. Let's double check that it's working, and it is working fine. This is again a year-old bulb, so you can see it's still producing and outputting UV over a year later. And again, just to satisfy you all, I do have some on its way right now to replace these. So let's go ahead and bring it down here, and we can see we have it in the 3s. So Ferguson Zone 3, looking good. That's about Tortellini's height right there. Could probably be even a little bit higher for the basking area, but that's pretty wide. So I think having it at 3, a little above 3, is fine for Tortellini. I think this is a good, I am not a snack. I am not a snack Russian tortoise. I don't know why I call him Russian tortoise.
Tortellini. He's like, now you are. You forgot my name.
So Tortellini's Ferguson Zone is good. It's measuring good with my Solarmeter right here. So I think that is working great. And I think he's the first one where it's automatically been perfect based off of distance. We're at RuPaul's enclosure, my Boyd's Forest Dragon. And he does, or she does, sorry, I always say he for RuPaul. She does have a UVB bulb mixed in, and this produces really no heat, but a little bit of heat, and really room temperature is a good basking slash temp for the enclosure. But anyway, you can see sort of how I designed it is that there's sort of a canopy and an undergrowth. Is that undergrowth, Olivia? Am I saying that right? Because we looked that up.
That's what it is.
Okay, I think it's undergrowth. So you can see that's how I kind of set that up. There's a lot of shade under here, and this is how they are in Queensland, Australia, in that little rainforesty area in the northeast, I believe. So that's kind of how I designed it. But let's go ahead and see what the UV is, since they do need a little UV. You can see up here it's pretty intense. And if we go down a little bit, this is actually probably pretty high. Now, Tortellini, oh my god. Now, RuPaul doesn't go right here. And if they did, and I might have to change this because this is really, really high, that would be bad. So RuPaul does go over here, which you can see is 0 diagonally. And this is pretty close of a distance, don't you think, Olivia?
Yeah.
Great input, great commentary, Olivia.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They needed that.
Over here, you can see it's 0.2 in Tortellini. Oh my god.
Wow, Tortellini is so
RuPaul. RuPaul goes over here as well. But you don't see RuPaul over here. And this is still a little too high because RuPaul could go here, but I guess technically in the wild, they could go to the emergent layer. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at me remembering biology from 5th grade. Anyway, so you can see this is working, and there is this option here for much higher, even though 2.8, yeah, that's high for them because you want to aim for 1. But basically, I think this looks good. I'm not too concerned. I think this is fine. Maybe, just maybe, I'll try to fix this up or use a lesser UV output bulb. But I think this is fine for RuPaul. So last one we're going to do is Frappuccino, my Argentine black and white Tegu, and he is currently climbing in his water bowl, if you want to show that. Taking a nice little drink there. Now the UVB above him, that's the one we're not going to measure. That's the one that's too high. I'm dropping that down to a 12%. I got a little bit higher of a basking spot, and then when I got the Solarmeter, I took a reading, and it was too high. So I'm going to show you this one over here, because this one's a good reading and exactly kind of what you should have for UV in your Tegu enclosure. So let's start off really close, and you can see that it's reading good. This is over a year old as well. So just want to point that out, and then let's start slowly going down. Hopefully, Olivia, you can pick it up. And we are about Frap's height right now, I would say. And it's about a 6, about a 5.5, around that area. And if you remember looking at the chart, the basking zone can go up to 7.2. So I think this is good, even if you go a little bit higher. Let's say he does some nice back arches, that's a 6. So I think the basking right here, this is all good for a number. And then as you start going away, it starts dropping pretty dramatically when we get into the 3s. So I think it's good. This is a good one right here. I'm going to have to re-measure the other one over there when I get to 12% and see what it's like, since he's a little bit closer than what he was previously. Otherwise, Frap's just going to do his basking right now, and we'll wrap up the video. Anyway, guys, I think it's information overload at this point, so I'm going to wrap up the video by shouting out the patrons. Thanks to Cat and Rick, Darian J, Herb M, David T, Angela L, Smooth Cat, Stephanie S, and Hex. I really appreciate your support. You guys, too, can support the channel for as little as $1 a month. Check the top right for more information. Tier 3 gets you on my forehead. Also, check out Reptile links. You can use code Professor Herp at checkout to get $5 off your first order of Reptile links. They're very nutritious. And the staple diet for Frappuccino, my black and white Tegu. You can offer them the hognose snakes, blue tongue skinks, and more. Definitely check them out. There's a link below in the description that automatically applies the code for you. Definitely check it out. Alright guys, let me know what you think about the video. Let me know if you have any feedback for me in a comment below. Leave a like as well, and subscribe if you haven't. See you all next time.